You're listening to Raising Anchor on 990 WBOB. Welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey. Your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storyline shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason.
Rhode Island FC find their revenge, defeating the Colorado Springs Switchbacks 2-0 in the club's first ever win against the Western Conference opponent. We're going to discuss the significance of this win, the performance on the pitch, and what it means going into the back half of this season as Rhode Island continues to climb and climb they climb. I'm your co-host, Matt Entrican, with my other co-host, Jason Carey. Jason, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing fantastic. So I've heard that revenge is a dish best served cold. So are you ready to feast on some 2-day leftovers from some revenge? And question then, do you reheat these leftovers like the pizza, or do you just eat it cold? So
first and foremost, I'm a cold pizza guy. I'm like a cold chicken kind of guy, because if it tastes good cold, why would I go back and reheat it? I'm going to keep living in that cold mindset. New Englander, come on, that's what you do. But I agree, it has been a fantastic time. It's always great when you get to think about things, watch the game again, knowing it's such an important win for just the morale of this club, the direction that this club wants to go. We're going to talk a lot about the impact from this game against the Switchbacks, but we got to start with the climb itself, Jason. We moved a position, and we're knocking on the door potentially of a home playoff berth yet again.
Yeah, crazy. We actually have no news to go into, and we're just getting right into the game here.
You know, Kawhi Leonard just sucks the oxygen out of the room last week and the week prior. There was a post-game press conference question about it, and I've never seen Kano just. I don't think I'm public enemy number one anymore. I think that for the rest of the season, I get a get out of jail free card with Conor Smith, and I'm completely okay with that because at least I didn't ask him about Kawhi Leonard on his post game. So, anyways, let's get into these league standings.
Getting back to it. So yeah, after that win, RFC jumped back into 6th place here now in the Eastern Conference, now on a 7-4-6 record after their victory over the Colorado Springs Switchbacks.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're paying attention to the rest of the table for the week, some good things happen our way. First, we see Hartford and Indy draw, both teams only getting a point out of their match. And then, of course, you look at the big one, because now as we start to spy that 4th place positioning, you start looking at an opportunity, and Louisville ties against San Antonio in the West. So now getting closer and closer to that potential home playoff line. I saw Tom Quinlan talk about it in his on his X account, and he's basically the first person to make the decree that we're getting a home playoff game come fall 2026. You know, we always talk about what's that magic number, when's the threshold that we can at least lock in that playoff situation. Tom Quinlan putting stakes out there as the state king. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes. But as we talk about it, we got to get into this game itself, and we'll start with Coach Conor Smith's impressions of the game and where he felt this team landed after the result against the Colorado Springs Switchbacks.
That's a very good team. I think, along with Charleston, probably the best team we played all year in terms of how hard they were to get the ball off, or they made us work really, really hard. For once this season, we were fortunate and got some luck. Like how many times we've been home, had so many chances. So certainly got lucky in moments, but you make your own luck, and credit to the team. I mean, they suffered a lot without the ball, and we took our moment when it came, but that's a very good team we just played.
Matt Jean in the chat saying that Tom Quinlan was not the first to declare that this team would make it, but that he has been saying it all along. That is true, Matt, but you know, Tom's the one that, you know, is the face of the media for Rhode Island. So as Tom saith, we listen. I don't know. Getting into what Kano said, and the disagreement about pizza, by the way, in the chat is lively. Getting back into this from a Kano Smith perspective, want to touch on two things. Obviously, this game was not in our control until the second half, when the goals started to flow. Both at the first goal was Sukata or Utaro, and then of course the stoppage time goal from JJ Williams. it felt like we were more in control of that first half, despite the goal that was called back, which we are absolutely going to talk about. And it felt like Colorado Springs was growing into the game a little bit more dangerously in the second half than Rhode Island FC. But then once that goal happened, everything gets flipped around. Do you agree with the assessment of Cano Smith saying that Colorado Springs was maybe one of the toughest opponents we've seen all season? And then he compared it. He elevated to Charleston Battery, which, I mean, the only time we've seen the Charleston Battery, we blew them away. Do we really think those have been the two fiercest games we've seen of the season?
I think when Cano looks at the game, we know that he loves to dominate possession. And we look at this game in both halves. Colo Spigs dominated possession. But I do think that there is a grain of truth there to what he says. I think on like going back after like rewatching the game too, there were long spells of period where Colo Spigs did have the ball and it felt like they were in control. And like you said, the team really had to suffer through it, especially when we talk about the defense here a little bit later in the game. Like things just kind of went their way. There's another world where we could be talking about a loss here, especially if maybe a different team had luck on their side.
And we're going to talk about the luck at the last segment, because there's an important differentiation, I think, to bring out there. Getting into this Colorado Springs side for a second, though, 60% possession for the Switchbacks. We've talked that the best version of Rhode Island FC is when they don't have the ball, but they still have to be able to play off the ball. They still need to be able to put movements and create defensive spaces to suppress a team that does have the ball. Colorado did not want to let Cano play the game that he wanted to play. You saw that in the way Rhode Island was stretched all night, both from a vertical and a horizontal. Was this a sign of, like, again, it didn't work out for Colorado Springs' favor? And there's an interesting stat in the mailbag that a fan brought up that we'll talk about. But when you look at how Colorado Springs applied this, and even though the scoreline may not be indicative of how close this game actually was, will clubs around the league be saying this could be the blueprint on how to beat Rhode Island? Or are they all going to think back to how Jay Heaps did it and just get a speedy forward, and then that's the key in going Route 1?
I mean, I think that's kind of is the tried and tested way to beat this RAFC is Route 1 with like speeded, like attacking our back line. Usually kind of throws us off in that regard. I don't know if the possession like heavy teams necessarily always come out in favor against us, because you know, we've seen that this team, as long as they can get somewhere between like close to 40%, you know, maybe in the upper 30s, that as long as they're not having a really off day, they're going to be able to get one or two.
Yeah, and this team definitely cultivates it with the 2 goals. There was a lot of shots towards the end of the night, not as many as I think Rhode Island would have wanted on target. I think only 5 shots, 1 on target going into the second half, but then they turn it on. They activate with some important substitutions, find the way into the net, not once, but twice. Want to talk about the players available. An interesting player left off the game day roster. Of course, Zachary Harivo and Karifa Yao still not available for the game. Hamidi Diop, though, the interesting scrub, we were concerned that maybe he had been re-injured. Asked coach after the game in the post press conference, what was the decision to leave Diop out? Was it a lingering injury? Was it that he just wasn't really ready and maybe he got put out too soon? We've been concerned about the quality of his health in the past, just knowing that he came from San Diego FC with something. Was this something of that nature? And he said no, it was a game day decision, and that he did not feel that Hamidi was ready to make the squad, make the cut. Want to ask you, not delving further into that with Coach Cano, do you think that this comes from a lack of performance and training that week? Or do we think that a healthier CJ Williams was ready to be an alternate coming off the bench? You know, the argument could be Diop is better than Kevin Vang, but he's not a midfielder, and we're, you know, pretty light right now in the midfield population. What was the decision you think that Cano had to go through to sacrifice Diop on the game?
I don't want to speculate too much because I don't have all of the knowledge at my hands. Don't want to start rumors and things here, but the fact that he didn't make the roster, like you said, when there are, Diop is or was maybe one of our better defenders. And we've seen that he's made his way on to the team. So we know that he's healthy enough, unless there's an injury that we're not talking about. He's healthy enough to make the roster. I wonder, like you said, is this some sort of like, did he not show up in practice? Is he maybe causing some other issues that like is forcing Kano to maybe discipline him, if you will?
He could have said just very easily that this was the lingering injury and that they didn't feel like he needed to play in this game. Kano was clear, and he does never mince words when it comes to those kinds of things of saying, I chose as a game day decision to not put him on the squad.
And whenever he says that, it feels like there's always something he's holding. It's some sort of cards he's holding close to his chest that he's not going to tell us. And that we probably will never be privy to.
We will never know. But let's talk about the players that were available, including a brand new surprise in this starting 11 for this game.
Yeah, so taking a look at the lineup here, we've got Koke Vegas in the back of the net here with a back four of Nick Scardina, Grant Stoneman, Frank Nodarce, and Aldair Sanchez. You're holding midfielders of AST and Uwe Bacharach, with the attacking midfielders of Jojea Quizera, Noah Fuson, and Yutaro Sukada, with JJ Williams up top.
Yeah, Yutaro getting his first ever start with the club. You know, we posted online during the announcements of the 18-man rosters on all of Rhode Island socials that this was a statement of intent from Kano to put the newcomer so quickly into the starting 11. The integration that must have had to have occurred to feel comfortable enough to bench other players like Leo Alfonso or Pity Rodriguez. Obviously, it pays dividends on the night given the production we saw out of him. But we want to talk about what exactly Kano had his thoughts on the newcomer from Orlando. And here's what he had to say about Yutaro.
I am in 2023 when he was at West Virginia. I had been hired, but that was when I was on my like scouting trails, and I sat with his agent at a game in Orlando, and I watched him, and he's so fun to watch. Like, I think his skill set is a dying art. Like, players that just love taking people on 1v1. We didn't have that profile of player, so I love having those options. But he's a lovely kid, just works hard, shows up, does his work. So when he became available, there's no way I was gonna let him go somewhere else.
So that is his thoughts. It looks like this was a long-term play for Kano to find a way to one day see Yutaro on the team. We weren't sure if this was Kano looking for a bargain, looking for value. We've talked about damaged players, especially with leg and knee injuries, where he revitalizes careers. But, you know, it's always exciting to hear that a player like this is such a long-term target for a coach like Kano Smith. And then lo and behold, he just has this incredible breakthrough night. I mean, we thought Logan Dorsey had a great first appearance with Rhode Island FC. You know, pump the brakes on that, put the seatbelt on, and Yutaro just took over. It was magic from the Japanese player on the night.
Yeah, he looked really good on the night. Back heel to generate probably one of the best attack sequences in this team that unfortunately JJ didn't convert there.
There's a story about that we'll talk about in JJ in a bit, but that would, yes.
You know, he had his hands in the set piece goal that unfortunately get disallowed, which we'll also talk about that. A very cheeky chip that maybe not a lot of people realized how good that actually was, because if you see the replay, like that was gonna dip right under the bar. And then, I mean, finally got the opening goal of the night. So, I mean, I think he had honestly a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit as well with Kano about the integration. The question from Brandon Mello, reporter at the post game, you know, he asked, how does a player like this fit in so quickly, so seamlessly? And Kano said a lot of it was not just the scouting and the familiarity he had established since all the way back in 2023, but also the familiarity and the comfortability of bringing a player like that into Rhode Island. He referenced a big influence from Zach Harivo, although on the mend right now, Zach Harivo being both part Haitian and Japanese. His mother's side of the entire family is very Japanese, very traditional in the sense of how they do things, immediately welcomed Yutaro into the group, made
Apparently
him
he's
feel
fluent in Japanese, so that you know, kind of removes that language barrier.
And your guys are going to hear from him in a second. You know, he can speak English and he speaks it well, but probably not his most comfortable native language. So, like, again, just those small little details of welcomeness, of trust, of building camaraderie, that goes a long way. And we see it shine already with Yutaro. My only concern now, Jason, is do we end up losing him to an Orlando City recall in the next 3 matches? But we're going to have to talk about that and so much more when we get back from break. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Thank you for listening to tonight's broadcast, powered by Sprout Coworking. For all your business needs, large or small, visit sproutcoworking.com. powering 990 WBOB. That's sproutcoworking.com.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
All right, back here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show, breaking down the 2 goals from Rhode Island FC players. First, Yutaro Tsukada in the 69th minute, pouncing on a rebound from a Colorado Springs defensive mistake, redirect, whatever you want to call it. But Jason, before we even talk about the goal, we've got to talk about the buildup. Leo Afonso, Pity Rodriguez, both substitutes in this game. Surprisingly, neither one of them getting the start. Coming in off the bench, they combine after Leo Afonso is able to move a ball vertically. Pity finds the connector. Tsukada gets a look, and it's deflected, and it comes back, and he goes, I'll go for another one and get the back-to-back. That time it goes in after the poor redirect from Colorado, and you love to see brand new player, brand new goal, and we get to hear music at Centerville Bank Stadium.
I really love watching the buildup to this play. You see that he comes in from a late run. He's kind of almost not even in the picture. And this is something we've complained about this team time and time again, that we don't have those late runners to crash the box. And then on top of that, he follows up to make sure that he double taps it, if you will. And that's just something that's like really been missing from this team. He became the second player in club history to score on his debut at Centerville Bank Stadium and the first to score a game-winning goal.
We're going to talk about that stat at the end. Someone is challenging it in the mailbag, and I do agree. Here is what Yutaro had to say about the goal at Centerville Bank Stadium.
This was my first game in Rhode Island from Orlando City. Since I got here, I've been enjoying every training, every game, which I was missing in Orlando. So yeah, every day I enjoying it. So today was a big game for us because we lost the finals against same team in 2024. So we needed to like win the game. So I'm so happy win the game and then score the goal.
How did that goal happen? What did you see on the play?
I don't remember how we ended up like PT cross, but when I see PT running, I just wanted to score, so get in the box, and PT was great pass, so I just needed to, pass it to the goal. But
you were kind of the quickest to that guy because the original shot deflected off one of the defenders.
Yeah.
Were you kind of just quickest to react to the next ball?
I mean, I got lucky. Maybe it was because of my first game, but I think I needed to score like fast shot. But it is what it is. I score, so.
So very humble Yutaro saying it was luck, right time, right place. Very interesting to hear about a lot of what he has to offer. We asked Conor Smith, why did we go out in a player like this? And he made it really clear. He said, we do not have a player that is willing and ready to take on defenders when we've won. We used to see that in, I think, Jojea Quazera's profile. I think he still does it from time to time, but more often he'll feint, he'll combine, he'll find freedom in the top of the box and rip some shots or find some passes. Jojea definitely not the duelist that he used to be, circa 2024. I also love, by the way, Yutaro talking about how important it was that we win that game against when we lost in 2024. He already knew the table stakes of the importance of this matchup. You can't hate this guy. You can't do anything but love him. And do we need to get the Godzilla tifos out again because we have a Japanese player? First it was Taimu Okiyoshi. Now we got to bring him back out, right? We got to be celebrating this hardcore.
It's kaiju tifo time.
I don't hate it. Want to also really quickly emphasize something for those that caught on. It wasn't really announced in the broadcast, but if you saw after the goal, after he celebrated with fans, he ran over by himself to the technical staff, gave everyone high fives and hugs, but he stopped and gave a long hug to kit manager Nick. And that was, we asked him afterwards, we said, hey, is there something special behind Nick Coelho's, that embrace? Like, do you know him from a previous time? And he said to us, and the reason we haven't going to share it yet, because I haven't seen the news, but at this point, I'm going to say it, and oh well, club, if this isn't okay to say, but he actually Nick is moving on to a new venture. He's moving on to a new experience, a new opportunity. And so this was Nick's last game. When Utaro found that out in the game, he said, I'm going to score for you. And he went and did it. And so he then went over to Nick and said, I did this for you. So it's just a touching moment.
You love to see it.
You can't write a better storyline than that. And so, but we're not even done talking about the scoring. We got to then go to JJ Williams getting one in the 90+2. You know, I love seeing JJ score goals at range more than when he uses his head or when he is a physical body in the box. There's just something where, you know, he is a complete striker, but like, it's just fun to see him do both versions of it. So he scores that goal. And by the way, that goal was the first league goal in stoppage time since all the way back when Maxey iced that penalty when he came in off the bench against North Carolina FC in the first ever win at Centerville Bank Stadium all the way back in June of last season. So you don't hate to see things like that. Anything that you have on thoughts from that goal?
I think this is another instance where, you know, you can say getting lucky, but we've also heard coach talk about creating your own luck. So you see in this play, like JJ gets to a spot where he is available to, he's pressing. But this goal and the first one, both, I also have to give my flowers to Alfonso because he came on and honestly, he felt like he had a fire under him.
I wonder why.
That he was maybe ready to kind of give that extra 10%. And I think that while he maybe like, you know, won't get the numbers per se, like it felt like he had a hand in both goals, almost like hockey assists for, if you will, for them.
And here's JJ on his thoughts on the goal.
Yeah, I think a big part of what we did well through that was we kept a clean sheet through the half, which was really big for us. There's been a number of games, even going back to last year, where we would have given up a set piece or something in those moments. So that's a big shout for our guys just to stay disciplined on those set pieces. Definitely a little frustrating on those 50-50s that we get called and don't go our way, and then we get a yellow for those, and then those guys now have to be cautious through the rest of the half and then through the second half. But I mean, it's tough because we're just going to compete and it's a 50-50 and it goes the wrong way, but they're in dangerous positions. So if we can just try to avoid those fouls in dangerous positions, because what ends up happening is they get free service, or they play, we have to step, get the ball wide, and then it's service. So big shout for our guys getting to the half without giving anything up, but we definitely just got to not foul in those dangerous areas.
So I just realized that was the wrong clip, but now you've heard that. JJ does go on to talk about the importance of being ready. You know, I think back to the second where he was talking in the postgame where the cameras weren't rolling about how flabbergasted he was missing the Aldair Sanchez cross that, again, Utaro set up with that back heel. He said it was the best service he's ever seen since coming to Rhode Island FC, and he was furious at himself for not putting what was supposed to be the easiest goal of his career away. He went on to say, all I had to do was let that ball hit my body somewhere and it would have gone in. Instead, I tried to get too technical with it and redirect it, and I ended up screwing it up for myself. And he took full blame. He said he apologized to Aldair afterwards because he's not been given such service on a silver platter in his entire time at Rhode Island FC. So that is a wild thing to say out loud.
Yeah, I mean, that means at this point, though, like he's getting the service and we're seeing the numbers for him. He scored his team-leading 8th goal of the regular season and 11th goal of the season across all competitions. I mean, he's already tying his single season career best with RAFC. I mean, he's not too far off from another record back with what was it, Tampa Bay Rowdies?
Right. And we asked him, though, when like you look at this 13 games remaining in the season for him in league play, we asked, are you shifting your internal targets now so that, you know, you've got this many games left? What should we expect? What is your new ceiling here? And he told us, he said, it doesn't even matter the injuries I've had in the first 2 seasons. I should be scoring more goals for this team. He wouldn't allude to what that new target might be. We asked him if he was eyeing a potential golden boot run, and he said the only thing that matters to him, home playoff berth and winning the whole dang thing at this point. He does want to probably have his best season of his USL championship be probably this year. He kind of alluded to it without saying it out loud. But right now, he's not looking at accolades. He's not looking at internal targets. He just wants to score as many goals for himself and probably for Tripp as he can. Now, though, can he beat the next record? Because I think that's very much doable with 13 games left.
Yeah, and you went back and checked the numbers. I mean, he's only 1 away from tying his best season with Tampa Bay. There's no reason that in 13 games he can't, even if it's a goal every other game, get 5 or 6 more and that's going to be the best season of his USL Championship career.
Do you think if we had to give it a raising anchor guesstimate here, what do we think he's got left in his locker for the rest of the season? More than 5 goals? Under 5 goals? Like anything beyond 2, and it's his best season he's ever had in his career. Do we say 2 is the baseline, and that's that's an obvious giveaway?
Barring no injuries, I don't see why he can't get 5+. Like that could be like maybe only 5 or 6, but that could also be 8, you know.
I don't disagree. We've got to go to break, and when we return, we've got the biggest storylines coming out of this game. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Fans, as the weather becomes more and more unpredictable, be sure to check out 990 WBOB's weather page for all your temperature, storm, and travel info. Stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature has in store with the 990 WBOB weather page.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
You know, Jason, we talked about the importance of the offense in the last segment, but we also have to recognize the greatness on that back line as well. Koke Vegas making 3 saves en route to his 3rd shutout win in 4 games, keeping his 7th clean sheet of the season and 31st of the Rhode Island FC career. I mean, again, the first statue, someone asked me at the stadium on the weekend, who's getting the first statue? And they said, you know, would it be Clay if he goes on to be super successful? Clay almost being a Centurion, just a couple games shy. Trivia question for you at the end on who is going to be the first Centurion at this point. But the first statue will be Koke Vegas, not because he's the first player, not because he's El Capitan, but because he is the man at the back of the net that we need.
Yeah, he's absolutely our unsung hero here, keeping us in tons of matches. Like you said, 3 big saves from here. But I think the really important part here, though, is if you go back and watch some of those chaotic moments, this team defended really well as a unit. There was a lot of players working, covering each other to make sure that like spilled balls get cleaned it up. We saw some good clearances from Grant after, you know, maybe we're not sure. We're not going to decide whose blame that was, but it's good to see both of them having good games. And there's a lot of dangerous crosses and in you know, Colorado attacks where they've had some dangerous looks in this game. We just either cleaned them up or diverted them.
Yeah, no, Koke stood on his head when he needed to and just scared Colorado the rest of the time. I don't disagree. I think that it'll be interesting. You know, he was so close to being considered, we think, for goalkeeper of the season last year. Will he get Golden Glove now?
I think he just needed a few more games. I mean, at this point, with how healthy he's being, I don't see why he can't get it this year.
I mean, you have to ask yourself, what are the metrics that drive that? You know, we talk about something like, is it clean sheets? Because that seems to be the most important number when we talk about from a goalkeeping stat perspective. And while it is important, there's so much more that goes into that. So it'll be really interesting to see in probably about 5 more games where Koke Vegas starts to have that, you know, that conversation on where we start to look at that. Right now, Rhode Island, from a clean sheet perspective in total, is way down there in the table, about middle of the table and 13th in the league. So we'll have to find out where that goes. But want to get into the big controversy of the night. It was the goal, or maybe not so goal, in the 40th minute. We got to talk about this. And I've got 2 pictures to show people that are following along on our video YouTube version on what exactly broke down here.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and saw that goal and thought, you know, should this have been called off? Let me go review the tape and give it a second chance. So Aiden Roca goes down, I would say very easily after some alleged contact here, and the goal gets taken away. And while we were able to hold on in that first half, that was another one of those moments, and I bet a lot of other fans were feeling the same, that like, is this another situation where luck isn't going our way, where we go into a second half, we give up a goal and say, well, you took one away from us, and it's completely changed the fabric of the game. At this point, it isn't an issue, but when you go back and review these pictures.
So what people are seeing right now is, if you want to zoom in on it, you'll see the moment of final contact between Hugo Bacharach and Aiden Roca. You see a hand placed on the back, but it's not being pushed off. It's not being pressed on. But most importantly, as the final moment of contact, if you see where head ref Matthew Corrigan's direction of eyesight is, it's back to the set piece where it's about to be kicked. So look at that photo first and go, okay, that's where he's looking. Then when we tracked, and I'm talking at 0.15 speed, when he finally enters the view, the range of view for Matthew Corrigan to see the interaction between Hugo Bacharach and Aiden Roca, it's now this. Aiden Roca is already on the ground. Hugo Bacharach is already 2 steps past, because all that happened with Aiden Roca, he slipped. He slipped. You can see it as clear as day. But by the time Corrigan sees what's happened, he can only assume the worst. We deserve better refereeing in this league, because
Was the field too wet from the rain?
well, here's the thing: is like my issue with this is that like I understand that there has to be like a ref's not going to catch everything, and for a big moment like this, it's a considered offensive foul in the box. The defense kind of always gets a little bit of a benefit of the doubt in these instances, and I know this isn't a part of the law, but when you look at this and you make that quick decision, you'd think that in this moment, if you don't see the contact, you'd let this play out internally, especially considering all of the action and activity was going on 4 players closer to near post, right? Like in that, or I guess far post from our perspective, sorry. So the ball's carrying away from where this defensive offensive collision is happening, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the play. But Matthew Corrigan is already on the whistle before the ball ever goes in. He doesn't even give it the challenge to think for a second, is this a foul worth calling? He goes to the whistle, and that's why you don't trust Matthews with 1 T. And I heard fans screaming at him that he was ruining the game of football as he walked into the tunnel at halftime. And you know what? I don't disagree with them at all. I think this was a terrible decision. I think this was one of the worst missed calls, because had we not gotten those 2 goals on the night and this ended up as a 0-0, Jason, we'd be singing a completely different tune right now.
Yeah, we know that Kano has gotten himself in trouble a few times with his words to the refs, and I think that he
when he went towards them at halftime,
we know he was frustrated here, but I think he definitely controlled himself there. Maybe kind of just
he got like 20 feet and then just turned,
poke the bear. But oh man, do you look at something like this? And we talked about recently in the Prinks Cup, there's a new video system. I mean, is this something where we had a goal ruled off? Could this been a quick check to say, actually, you know what, we can see from the video that he slipped?
Well, if I got the video right this time, this should be it.
I think that's a very good team. I think along with Charleston, probably the Hugo or Frank stepped on somebody and it was lower leg contact. I mean, just go back and look at set pieces. I have a catalog that I send to the referees that JJ gets abused on set pieces, literally abused, and like grabbed and pulled, and it's nothing. But that's a foul. It's incredibly soft. Incredibly soft.
What do you tell the? We went on to ask, would he believe in a FBS system? It's being trialed right now in Prinks Tires Cups, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely. We need that now because we need to protect players and we need to prevent decisions like that from having the legs that it can have to a game like that." And so it's so interesting to say all that, because Jason, I think back to when he mentioned in his recap that the team finally had luck. And I think about that, and I think about that moment in time. We end up with 3 additional fouls then right afterwards to end the first half. I've never really thought, and I liked how he said you make your own luck, you create your luck, and that's true. But man, we've grinded a lot of games this season, or we've blown through a lot of games this season. When you look at that one moment in time, can you really say we're lucky yet, or is there still some room to grow when we talk about the luck stat?
I mean, I do think that there's maybe some room to grow, if you will. I do agree with Kano that some of that is making your own luck. I think this year, compared to if we think about last year, just taking shots is going to increase the opportunity of one going in, right? Unless you are a clinical finisher, you're not going to get many goals if you're only taking 6 to 8 shots a game, which we saw last year time and time again. And there have been games where we've only taken that many, we've got those goals, but more often than not, we're getting double-digit shots this year. So I think some of it also comes down to creating the right type of opportunities, getting that, gelling to the sense where, right, when JJ's talking about how Allaire gave him some of the best service ever. Now, the longer these players play together, the more they get those reps in, they're going to know where each other like want the ball. And so that's probably another reason why JJ is having such a good season now, is that he's getting that continuous time playing with the same players who know where he wants to be, where he's going to be and where he wants the ball.
Ben Johnson in the chat asking, what accountability do referees face in the USL for blatant missed calls? There's a couple things. So one, we learned in the post game, I just wasn't prepared to write one, but we learned that pool reporting does exist to write a question into the refs. Now, when that happens, it's usually very like corporatized,
super PC.
You know, my name is Matthew Corrigan, and I saw Aiden Roca go down from contact from Hugo Bacharach, which is why I called the foul. So often you don't see something that would challenge the bias or the lack of observation. And so that's why I think video football review will actually be a big part of how we can at least get some of these back. Unfortunately, the rest of it is you can make complaints, you can submit findings to USL or to US to Pro, and say, hey, like these are the things that we believe you got wrong. But they're under no inclination unless they have such an egregious mistake that they have to police themselves on. Unfortunately, that's just the contest we're in right now. But want to get into the next talk about, we have to have a conversation about 6 yellows, 4 of them in the first half of this game. RFC goes out, sets a new record for disciplinary problems here. Like we got to talk about now with that many cards, like where's this team at? How do we feel about 6 cards in this game? Was it warranted? We're going to talk about the aggression here of this team in a second, but 6 yellow cards, in a game like this, like what are we? Was that justified?
It's like I'm kind of torn here, right? I see some of those fouls and think those shouldn't even be fouls, or like at the same time, can we let them play? Right? Does someone's first foul have to immediately be a card? You know, we have a good friend of ours who is a ref and went back and reviewed some of them and was about 50-50 on them. He did say that some were warranted and some were not. You know, when it comes to the way that our team seems to get a lot more yellow cards than other teams and fouls don't seem to go our way, you know, maybe part of this, absolutely we are biased. But I think maybe part of that too is, and then I think he had a really good kind of like guess here, is the league has a really convoluted system. And it almost feels like maybe do they want to give more yellows? Because maybe not everyone knows this, but you can lose yellow cards.
Well, so let's tell new fans, old fans alike, really currently what we know with the current discipline and consequences right now when it comes to card accumulation. So right now, when you hit 5 yellow cards, you are subject to a disciplinary fine. Not necessarily suspension, but the league can suspend if they feel like it. 8 yellow cards is where you get the first game suspension for accumulation. 11 cards get you a second game suspension, and 14, there's another escalation under you basically reset the structure to a certain extent. And then like Jason's saying a second ago, when you have there's a good behavior mechanic where if you go 3 games without discipline or any yellow card or red card, you roll 1 back. And I think you can do that 3 times in a season. So basically, if you're at knocking on the door of 8 cards, like you're at 7, and if you get 1 more, you're going to be suspended, but you go 3 with good behavior, it'll roll it back to 6.
And speaking of such, Hugo Bacharach has now accumulated 5 cards, not once this season, but twice after a rollback for 3 games of good behavior. For those of you who would say that he's already at 8. So we've actually went back and looked, and reminder also to red cards will wipe one of the yellows.
Right. So he's at 7, and with the other one being the red card, he served 1 suspension. So while he has 7 total yellow cards, including a red card, he's back to 5 right now on the accountability. So now what I don't know is, did he get fined twice because he's tripped the 5 card accumulate or 5 yellow card accumulation twice? Not sure. But Jason, really quickly running through this, it's Hugo Bacharach at 7 total cards, then Jojea Quizera, JJ Williams, Pity Rodriguez, Leo Afonso, and our sweet summer child of Clay Holstead now at FC Dallas, all with 3. There's only one through and through defender in this list. Why are all of our attacking players getting yellow cards? It makes you kind of question. All of our defenders have 2 or less because of rollback at this point. So, like, our defensive line is not where we're panicking and struggling. It's our offensive lanes getting shut down or just trying to disrupt the game and make sure counterattacks aren't flowing.
I mean, in the pressing game, the defense starts at the front. As soon as you lose the ball, you try and win it back. So it to a certain extent, it makes sense.
I don't hate it. It just makes me laugh that we think all the time it's Krifa Yao that is collecting all of them. By the way, not the next Centurion or not the first Centurion, in case that's the guess you're going to make. We will get to that again before the end of the show. But tying the cards into the aggressiveness of this RIFC side, went back and looked at the numbers. Of the last 6 games, RIFC has only not doubled the foul output of their opponent twice. Once on the loss to Sacramento Republic and then the win against Pittsburgh. And the only reason they didn't double the production of their fouls versus their opponent was because their opponents matched them in foul intensity. Otherwise, Rhode Island FC has doubled fouls against every other team in the last 6. And if you go back almost the last 15, it's almost like 60% of the time they've out-fouled by a factor of ×2. The only time they haven't even hit double digits was back in May, on May 30th, in their 1-0 loss away to Indy. They only had 9 fouls committed in that game. This team is aggressive. We asked Kano if that's if there's something he needs more out of from this team, or if there's something that he needs to see change, if this is exactly how he wants Rhode Island FC to play. And I don't know if you heard the answer. Like, do we agree with where Kano thinks that this team is on the aggressive and physicality of the sport and of the club itself?
I think I do agree with him to a certain extent. I think that it is about finding the balance there,
which is what Kano said.
Yeah. And so like, if you go into it and you watch some of these challenges, it's like you could have kept up with him and tried to slow him down as opposed to immediately just swiping his legs. If you win the ball, maybe, hey, it works, but that there are some of the fouls that I think maybe a little bit more thought needs to go into them. But at the same time, it is a contact sport, right? And we saw, and a lot of other fans did in the World Cup, they let them play. So
do we ever get to a moment where pro referees let the boys play, or which will bend first? Will it be Kano Smith and his ideology, or will it be the pro reffing system for Division II and future Division I and USL Premier?
I think it'll be a long time before that. I don't know if we'll unfortunately get to reap the benefits of that anytime soon. All
right. Well, then let's talk about revenge, because you brought it up at the beginning. You like your revenge cold. I couldn't think of what that was at first, and I think that's Star Trek. So hashtag Jason's a nerd for the night.
Hashtag not a Star Trek show.
Hashtag why not be a Star Trek show? I guess I don't care. What is thoughts on this revenge game? Because Kano Smith, it was weird to hear him say in the post game that this was just another day in the office. He was excited to beat Colorado as they are right now because of how much of a good team they are, and he beat one of the best teams in the league. But when we asked about the comparison to the 2024 result, he said that wasn't that team, it wasn't that coach. I don't care. They had no table stakes from that perspective.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this coin here, right? We saw in the interview with Utaro that he brought it up. So that a player who just got here, if he's
hand on the shoulder, listen, my friend, we hate this team.
Like, if he brings it up, it's talked about in the locker room. Kano is very much playing the kind of PC manager there, who's no, every game's important. Like, he doesn't want to get too lost in the sauce of rivalries and things like that. He's calm and sometimes calm and calculated in regards to like what his thoughts are for the next match, and doesn't want to get caught up in some sort of revenge. That being said, I think it was huge for the fans, because the fans remember, the streets remember. A lot of us flew there, and we know we were spoiled. It was our first year, but it was very disappointing the way that we went out. And this is also a team that we hadn't beaten before, because we also played them that season. We didn't get the chance to see them last year. So to get over that hump, to get that slump, and to know that, no, I know these teams are in flux and their players change, but we have beaten this team now, and we don't have to sit there and think in the back of our minds, oh, RAFC have never bested Loudoun. They've never bested Colorado Springs, right? We can say now that we have, and kind of get that monkey off our back and just play the team that's in front of us.
Do you know the only team we haven't beat yet now? I think it's only when I did not do any pre.
Are we
work
talking
on this.
all
teams
well,
besides Sporting Jacks as a newcomer?
We haven't beat New Mexico United, right? One draw and one loss.
Okay, so there are 2 teams. I did.
There's another team. Probably I'm just not.
Orange County.
Yeah,
Orange County.
Yeah. A tie and a loss.
A tie and a loss. So interestingly enough, here is what JJ had to say afterwards about how much he took it personally and how much the locker room did as well.
I think whenever we know it's going to be a tough opponent and we know we're going to have to grind and put that work in, look at every year we play Charleston. Look at every year we play Tampa. Look at every year we play Louisville. We are doing our top distances, maybe because we have to, but also what that turns into is we end up creating a little bit more chances and then we put them away, or we score early and then they have to chase. But if we can do that and step out that same exact way against those other teams, then it should be a walk in the park for us. But that's the hard part, is just staying consistent every week in and week out. It doesn't matter who you're playing. If we can focus on ourselves throughout the week and then start every game that way, going into halftime well, then it should be a cakewalk for us. But that's just something that we have to continue to work on us in that locker room.
11th goal. So earlier, again, because it wasn't until the cameras were on, he was super happy. For those of you that watched the game live in Colorado Springs, you may remember when the final whistle happened, JJ Williams immediately walked off the pitch, kicked like 3 doors open and went straight to the locker room while everyone else stood outside. He came back out eventually, but whatever went on from a soul searching perspective from him inside, he probably took it the hardest. Him and Noah probably took it the hardest on the team, at least in front of fans at the moment. So, they definitely cared. And so much so I talked to Noah because I ran into him on the pitch. I was like, hey, how much of an important? And he's like, you saw me. I was crying the last time around. I'm so happy. This might be the most important regular win I've ever had. And I told him, well, Connor just told me it was just another game. He's like, where's he at? I will go have a conversation with him. I will go yell at Connor Smith right now. I was like, be careful, Noah. Don't get yourself in trouble. We need you on the pitch. But listen, these are the moments that matter. And this was a team we needed to put to bed. And it was so exciting to do it. The fans showed up. Fans were excited. It was a great night. And I couldn't have asked for a better experience when it comes to getting a result like this. I'm going to keep this up there with what we've done to Hartford in the past. This game was one of significant importance if you've been a fan of this team since 2024.
Yeah, it's huge. I think we've already started the momentum, but we could look at this as like one of those moments like a Memphis 901 moment where we look at like movie, like a pivotal moment in our season. Right?
Interesting that you say a Memphis 901 because there's a connection to that when we get back on the mailbag. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entricket and Jason Carey.
To Ross M here says, question for the pod. Is it me or do we seem to be getting way more fouls called on us than the opponent? Are we getting a reputation for fouling or is it because we don't flop? 7 yellow cards to 1 seems ridiculous. Andrew M also adding, I feel we are reffed so unevenly and unfairly.
There's a conversation to be had. One, I think we are one of the most physical and aggressive teams in the league. That cannot be overstated. But I think too, and now that we broke down the yellow cards, where they're coming from, a lot of offensive fouls, not offensive, a lot of fouls coming from the offense as they're playing defense. I think that this is just a level of intensity and physicality that refs aren't prepared for at this level of play. And when they see other teams like the Gentlemen's of Oakland Roots who have we made the joke that Conno Smith has more yellow cards than the entirety of Loudoun or the entirety of Oakland. And this was 2 months ago. There's a certain style and dimension that all teams play to. Rhode Island's is, sea salty. We're going to beat you up, take your lunch money, and we're going to go score some goals. I don't think it's unfair. And you could say that at least with the number of cards that we're getting per match, you also then look at the fouls. And I'm not trying to justify this in any way, shape, or form like that. But okay, so we got 6 yellow cards, but we had 23 fouls committed. On the other hand, Colorado Springs technically actually got 2 yellow cards with 10 fouls. So they're averaging 5 fouls per card, whereas we're almost the same, a little less, I guess, because of the 6th card. If we hadn't gotten the 6th card, that would have been just about as close. But with the extra, and this being the first time we've ever hit that kind of apex, the math kind of maths, but it's just, I think it's the nature that this league isn't prepared for the play style that remember, Connor Smith is a student of like the Premier League and Champions League.
Yeah, the world game. So
and so we've said this at length, Jason. Connor Smith can't dial it down and play to the level he's at. He demands his players to play at a far superior level, and he's trying to get them all there along the way, even if he's got to take them kicking and screaming. Joe P, this is the type of win this team needs to push for a home playoff spot. Next week is the big test against Tampa Bay to see where they stand. Playoffs, home playoffs. Are you feeling it again, or are we wait and see? And is Tampa the next big test?
I think Tampa absolutely is the next big test. They're still top of the table. So I think it's going to be important that, that's one of those matches where we just don't have to lose, right? If we go out there, get a draw against them, I think that gives us that keeps the momentum going, right? We're unbeaten, if you will. So I think we need to kind of tighten up some of those away matches, not kind of give away so many losses there. And then I think that'll set us up for a very good opportunity to go on to claim a home spot. Mike M says here, any update on Yao? I know we got the clean sheet, but if it were not for Koke having a really strong game, coupled with a bit of luck, Colo Spigs could have had 2 or 3 goals. I feel without Yao, the back line struggles to pick up man on aerial balls into the box, especially on set pieces.
Yeah, I think Stoneman doesn't have the same vertical as Yao, despite Yao's got to have at least like 25 pounds on Stoneman. First and foremost, I don't have an update. I was the only person in the post game asking questions except for Brandon and Jake, and they only each asked one. And so I can only ask so many questions, especially after someone asks about Kawhi Leonard before I start to lose Kano's patience. So I will try to find out, but I don't have an update. It was more important for me to find out another player's availability, which we'll talk about in a second. I do agree with you. I think we are missing something in Karifa Yao right now, not having him there. I'd love to see him kind of anchor that back line again. I think we'd be putting games to bed much quicker and much more easily right now than where we're at. But right now it's a wait and see, and hopefully we get some good news out of the club in the next couple. I'd love to see some transparency. When I was gone on vacation, you guys talked about RFC's transparency. Release the medical records. Give us the transparency.
Maybe
on this.
He's got to go on another vacation.
Torin asks, and he didn't ask this in the mailbag. He asked me at the stadium, and so I'm using this against him. Producer Torin asks, "Who's your Defiant 1636 Player of the Year nomination?" And you don't have to say it, but have you made one yet?
I haven't made one yet. I mean, if you
remember, we can use our platform to influence other people to make decisions.
Right. If you're forcing me to make a decision right now, I think I'd be leaning towards.
How about a position? Give us a position.
Just because I don't mind saying names, and I'll give 2. So I think there's 2 options right now for me, and this will depend on how the rest of the last 13 games go. I think, you could maybe even argue 3 depending on how it goes. JJ Williams for the number he's putting up. I think Ugo Bacharach for the consistency we've had in midfield to be able to lose a player like Clay Holstead, and not to say that we don't miss him, but I don't look at this team and think, oh man, defensive midfield is such an issue right now. He's so good at it that we don't even realize how good he is. And then finally would be Koke, right? If he can actually claim goalkeeper of the year from the league, I think that also puts him in the running. So I think that spine right there is probably your big names, unless Jojea goes on and scores 6 more, or Sukata scores 10. Unless someone really just grabs that competition and just runs with it the last 13 matches here. Chloe says, "Isn't Utaro our 3rd debut goal at Centerville Bank Stadium?"
So I added this in because I got a text about this, and the person who is related to Chloe is in the chat so that he can relay this message out. Technically, yes. Technically, the announcement that we've only had 2 is incorrect. Izzy did score in his home debut at Centerville Bank Stadium in that 1-0 victory in the Jägermeister Cup that advanced us on to the semifinals, where we don't talk about what happened with Sacramento. But that being said, he had already played his first minutes as a player in Loudoun. So the question becomes, for Logan Dorsey, he was a debut there. Technically, Utaro had already seen minutes last week as well. So we almost have to add Busy into that because otherwise Utaro doesn't get to say that it was his debut. You could say as a start, and that's not something
maybe
Busy's
they're
had yet.
using the term and saying Centerville Bank Stadium debut, not like your
so
first minutes with
technically
the club.
Chloe is correct and she needs her flowers is what I'm saying. Rachel M is asking, is the only reason we won this game despite the bad ref is because it rained?
I mean, RAFC are only happy when it rains, apparently. Weirdly enough, I think we've talked about this before, and I just don't have enough time in the day to do these kind of crazy stats. Like, I wonder what our record is when it rains.
I know the record, and I know the amount of games. I actually got this from the club. We've only played one non-rain game, and it was not a win.
Was the loss against Birmingham?
Yep.
Okay, so then maybe we kind of needed to rain, even if it in this time for people who were there, it rained for 5 minutes at most, and it wasn't that heavy, and it was warm enough that 10 minutes later we are all dry.
Do we think that we have a front office that never can sell out the stadium, but we win the USL Cup? Is that a fair compromise?
I mean, that could be the trade-off, because then do we then see a surge in tickets next year and we just sell all the games out? But
I'm gonna ask Sean Carey if that's the commitment they've made. Alan P writes in. Stacey L. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Jason,
the ref was the worst ever, says Stacey L. Why do we keep getting such terrible refs?
Stacey, it's because we're in the USL Division 2. Went back and checked, by the way, Corrigan stats, Matthew with 1T. He actually oversaw another famous match of ours. He oversaw the Memphis 901 2-2 draw that saw a Koke red card where Memphis came back with 2 goals with only 6 minutes left in the game to equalize late. Listen, man, we talk always about when does this team kick off its second half of the season run? When do they have that Memphis 901 moment? Maybe it's not a Memphis 901 moment. Maybe it's a Matthew Corrigan moment, and maybe we've just had that. So
that was why. I mean, we still kind of kicked it off the second half of last year, but maybe we didn't have that moment because we didn't have Matthew Corrigan ref us last year.
Yeah, and we didn't make it to the USL Cup final last time. So now I, unlike Tom Q, will lock it in. Matthew Corrigan has just sparked this team.
Time to get out the Pepe Silva board, start connecting the dots.
It's time. Alan P writes in, with Sukata getting the start, what message is this sending to Alfonso and Pitti? Love this question.
I mean, I think we kind of touched upon it earlier. It felt like both Alfonso and Pitti played very well when they came on. And maybe the fact that Kano went out and grabbed another player and immediately started him kind of put a little fire into them to realize hey, those performances, I need a little bit extra from you. So that you kind of love to have this competition. It's almost beneficial to have the wealth of players that you can call upon, because their spot is no longer guaranteed, because I have too many of you to field an 11. We're not going to put 6 attacking midfielders out there.
All midfielders. Yeah.
So if you want to start, then you're going to have to give a little extra. Eric N says, I never doubted we'd beat Colo Spigs. Their away record is garbage this season. Like you guys say, they cheat with altitude.
So I didn't know I didn't not believe Eric at the time, but I went and checked, and he's right. They are on a 2-2-5 record on the road this season, and the only team that's worse than them in the Western Conference, because we don't even talk about Sporting Jacks right now. The only other team worse on the road, Monterey Bay, who we have coming up in a couple of weeks. So maybe this was a gift, getting Colo Spigs in this time where they've been perennials at home with their altitude, Eric, to your point. And they've just maybe not seen any success here on the road. So maybe this was a well-deserved win. Maybe that was the luck in and of itself. Lucas B writes in, we've beaten Colorado. Who's left to worry about?
I mean, I guess it depends how you frame it in terms of who's left to worry about. Is this in terms of teams that we've talked about that we haven't beaten, like a New Mexico United, who we're not going to play this year anyway, right? So
sadly,
don't need to worry about them. I mean, I think the teams that we need to worry about right now are probably one that's coming right up here is Tampa Bay Rowdies. They're still top of the league. Kano also talked in the press conference about it. There's still a lot of respect for this Charleston team. You can't sleep on them. I think we still need to play them one more time. I think that
there's one team we haven't beaten in the East. I didn't realize it till just now. There's one team, and they should probably be the next target. If we're not talking
about Sporting Jacks,
I don't count them. I don't count them. But if you think about, like, to your point about like teams that matter because of the implication or like the testing of the quality of play that we offer, then sure, I think it's Tampa and Louis. But there is a team, and I just realized we've not tasted success yet. So if we're talking in Colo Spigs fashion,
well, so we beat Louisville before, we beat Charleston before, we beat Detroit before, we beat Pittsburgh finally recently. We've beaten Hartford.
Have we beaten Detroit City FC?
I'm like 99% sure.
I'm pulling it up right now. That's what I wasn't sure about.
I think that because didn't we've beaten
Maxey, never mind.
Yeah,
we have beaten Detroit City FC. Yep, forgot. Last year, about 3 days ago, a year to the date, we beat Detroit City FC 1-0.
Yeah,
so I forgot about that game.
It's just, I mean, I guess we have to worry about the mighty Sporting Jacks then at this point. But no, if we're talking about teams that we need to beat for playoffs, we need to go up against Tampa Bay. And honestly, even though, like, I don't think you're wrong with when it comes to Detroit, because they've been a thorn in our side too. That's a team that
our win was a maxi penalty.
Yeah. It was a maxi penalty, who now plays for them again.
Traitor. I'm just kidding. Andrew writes in, by the way, not going to play this year unless, hinting at potentially an Orange County. If you had to play Orange County or New Mexico in the final.
Oh.
And other than like the fact that we would love to host it.
Are we going to say we have to go away?
Yeah. Then it's got, I mean, host.
I would say it's Orange County then, because
New Mexico's at altitude.
New Mexico also has a lot of altitude power.
Okay.
So.
Orange County is the lock-in, and they either can be there or they can be here. Orange County.
All right, to reel this back in here, next one, Rich W says, updates on when Froyo is available. Love the show.
Stop doing that.
His name is Froyo.
You're literally going to introduce yourself one time to him and go, I love you, Froyo. And like, he's just going to look at you. So I asked Kano, and he said right now, if he could, it looks like they are hung up on some passport issues right now. So they are desperately kind of counting it hour by hour. So with that level of expectation and expedience, I think that we should see him at the next game. If we don't, it's just down to there's nothing in the normal process of things that shouldn't have already happened that hasn't happened, which means this is down to one of those weird one-offs. And so this is day by day at this point, and we should just hope that he's ready for Tampa Bay as another weapon, either off the bench or to start. And thanks for loving the show, Rich. We appreciate you, and we love you too. Braden N writes in, we've held our own against the top teams. Should I just not watch games against teams below the playoff line at this point?
I mean, so that means the Tampa Bay game next week, should watch that. But then maybe not the one against Monterey Bay FC, but then also they're not in a good place and they have a bad away record. So I think there's a few more caveats to that, but I get the sentiment, and we saw JJ talk about it a little earlier, that sometimes there's probably a very mental aspect to that, where the team always feels like they're up against the big guys. And then when they subconsciously know that, like, oh, yeah, this team, they've let in like 51 goals this year, we'll probably get like 6. And then they kind of get sucker punched there.
Do you think we've had our goals galore game already?
I don't think so.
I mean, right now it'd be Charleston. Do we? Is that going to be the potential goals galore?
I see. You mean like one?
Like, do we think we're going to get that 5-goal game, but we actually won't? And it was our 4 past Charleston. We already had the goals galore.
Maybe. I think this is more of a team that's maybe a little more balanced, in a sense of we score a higher average amount of goals, but we're not going to have those kind of like fluctuations where they go way off the charts.
We'll have to see what happens when you put the Blue Ranger power suit on. I know we're at time, but I want to ask you, Centurion, who's going to be the first Centurion for Rhode Island FC? And it will happen in this game against Tampa Bay.
So I would have said it was Yao, because I feel like he's always been there, but it can't be him.
It would have been him if he hadn't been injured for all these games. He would have been tied for potential the first.
Okay, so it can't be.
It would have been Clay Holstead,
Koke,
but he got injured
because he's missed a few too many games. Is it Grant Stoneman?
It is not Grant Stoneman.
So then Frank Nodarce?
It is not Frank Nodarce.
Well,
Chat. Let's see if chat
JJ
can figure this out
Williams has
first. It's
been
not
injured
JJ
quite a
Williams.
bit. Is it Jose Quizera?
It's not. You're just listing players with all the international games he's had. Jose Quizera will be the last of the 2024 roster.
Thompson missed too many games for that to make sense.
That's not AST. Natesky tried to steal it out, but it's not AST.
And I'm like going through our lineup. I don't.
He played this last weekend. He started.
And
do
so,
you need the graph here?
Noah Fuson?
There you go. Noah Fuson will be the first Centurion should he get an appearance in this team on the weekend.
Okay. And is this counting? This is appearances, not
starts.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Noah Fuson will be the first Centurion.
I guess he is ever present in the sense of, but I think it's because of the fact that I don't see him as a lock-on starter that kind of like pushed him down the list for me.
Irvin, when you listen to this, if there's an opportunity to ever get Noah a player banner, should he earn that, make sure it's him wearing like the Spartan Centurion,
the first Centurion
outfit. Yeah, make that the tifo, and we'll go from there. But hey, listen, it's been a fun show. I always love when we get to talk to fans along the way. I kind of like this 9 p.m. format. It seems like more people like this 9 p.m. format. So let us know in the chat if you want us to move the show back an hour and it doesn't mess with dinner. It doesn't mess with something else. We've always done 8 because that's just what we've done. Really curious to see if people want us to push these back by an hour and enjoy talking some Rhode Island FC soccer here on Monday nights. Jason, get us out of here, and we can't wait to talk shop about Tampa Bay on Thursday.
Thanks, y'all, for joining us. We'll catch you on Thursday. Anchors up.
Anchors up.
You've been listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. You can follow the show on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast and at Raising Anchor on Instagram. And be sure to check out and subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen by searching for Raising Anchor. Make sure to check out all of our coverage over at the Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RAFC news at theblazingmusket.com. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask you to be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the show. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm your main man, Juju, and on behalf of the Raising Anchor crew, goodbye for now. And as always, we are Rhode Island FC.